Hello everyone and welcome to the biology lecture series, and today we are going to discuss the topic human reproduction. Okay, so in the previous lecture we were discussing about the male reproductive system, and we also discussed that humans, they undergo sexual reproduction in which two parents are required, and both of these two parents, they release the male as well as the female gametes. Okay, so these gametes, they are produced in the primary sex organs. So primary sex organ in male, it is testes, and the primary sex organ in female, it is ovaries. So these testes and these ovaries, these produce the male and the female gamete respectively, and they also produce the sex hormones. Clear? So now in this lecture, we'll be discussing about the female reproductive system. Okay, so let's start with this lecture. Now, the female reproductive system, it consists of a pair of the ovaries. Okay, so there are two ovaries along with a pair of the oviduct. Okay, it consists of the uterus, cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia. And the female reproductive system is located in the pelvic region. So here is the image showing you the female reproductive system. Okay, so this is the view of the female pelvis showing the reproductive system. So you have to remember all these structures. Okay, we'll talk about the structure in the upcoming slides. So here, this is the uterus, then you have the urinary bladder, which shows the urine for some time. Then you have all the structures, urethra. Urethra is the opening through which the urine is discharged. Then this is the clitoris. Okay, we'll talk about this also. Labium minora and labium majora. Then this is the vaginal orifice. Okay, here is the cervix, and then the rectum where the feces is stored for some time. Then this is the vagina, which is also known as the birth canal, and this is the anus through which the undigested or the waste materials, these are eliminated out of the body. So these are the, you can say, the parts of the female reproductive system. Okay, again let's discuss. It consists of the pair of ovaries. Ovaries are the primary sex organ, you have to remember. Okay, so there are primary sex organs and there are secondary or accessory sex organs. Okay, what is the function of ovaries? Ovaries produce the female gamete. What is the female gamete? Female gamete is the egg. Okay, apart from this, okay, so this is the first function. What is the second function here? Second function is the production of the hormones. So what type of hormones does it secrete? The first one is the estrogen, and second one is the progesterone. Okay, this is clear. Now let's move on. Now, these part of the system along with the pair of the mammary glands are integrated structurally and functionally to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and the child care. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that the female reproductive system. Okay, and the mammary gland, you know, we are mammals, humans are mammals. Okay, they belong to class Mammalia, and what is the feature of this class Mammalia? That there is the presence of the mammary gland. If we talk about the female, they consist of the mammary gland, and another feature is the presence of hair on the skin. So these parts of the female reproductive system along with the mammary gland, they are integrated structurally and functionally, and they support these processes: ovulation, okay, which is the release of the ovum. Then fertilization. What is fertilization? Fusion of the male and the female gamete. Then pregnancy. Then birth of the child, which is known as parturition. Okay, fertilization is fusion of the gametes. So during sexual reproduction, male and female gametes are produced and they are fused together to form the zygote. And zygote later on develops into embryo, and embryo will further give rise to the new individual. Then birth of the child. Okay, giving birth to the child is known as parturition. Okay, then child care is also important. Okay, so mammary gland, it produces the milk. Okay, so this process is known as lactation, and this is very much important in the child care. Now, ovaries are the primary female sex organs. We have already discussed that. It is the primary sex organs. And what is the function of the ovary? So it produces the female gamete, which is known as the ovum, and it also produces several steroid hormones known as the ovarian hormones. Okay, so hormones, okay, they can be proteins, they can be steroids also. Okay, so hormones, okay, these are usually produced by the endocrine glands. Okay, so gonads, they produce the hormones. Clear? So gonads, they are the part of the endocrine system. And what are endocrine glands? Endocrine glands are those glands, okay, which directly secrete their secretion into the blood. Okay, so they are also known as the ductless gland. So hormones are secreted by the gonads. Okay, and what kinds of hormones does ovaries secrete? Ovaries, we have already discussed, it secretes the estrogen as well as the progesterone. Okay, now let's talk about the position of the ovaries. Now, ovaries are located on each side of the lower abdomen. So there is a pair of ovaries, means two ovaries are present. And where they are present? They are present on each side of the lower abdomen. So in this image, you can see the position of the ovaries. So this is a diagrammatical sectional view of the female reproductive system. So here is the one ovary, this is the second ovary. Okay. Then here you can see this is the uterine cavity. This is the cervix, cervical canal, vagina. We'll talk about all of these terms in the upcoming slides and lectures. Okay, this is the uterine wall, endometrium, myometrium, and perimetrium. Okay, this is the fallopian tube here. Fallopian tube. These are the parts of the fallopian tube. Isthmus, ampulla, and infundibulum. We'll talk about this also. This is fimbriae. Okay, so you have to remember all these terms. Okay, so this is the sectional view of the female reproductive system. Clear? Now let's move on. Now let's talk about the ovary first. So ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeter in length and is connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by the ligaments. Clear? Now each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma. Now the stroma is divided into two zones. Okay, so the peripheral means the outer region, it is known as the cortex, and the inner region, this is known as the medulla. Clear? So always the outer region, this is the cortex, and inner region is also known as the medulla. Okay, if we talk about the kidneys also, so the outer region, the peripheral region is known as the cortex, and the inner region is known as the medulla. Clear? Now let's talk about the oviducts. Okay, in the image, I've shown you the fallopian tube. So another name of fallopian tube is oviduct. Clear? Oviduct, the uterus and the vagina, this constitute the female accessory ducts. Clear? So they are the female accessory ducts. Clear? Now, let's talk about the fallopian tube now. Now, each fallopian tube is about 10 to 12 centimeter long. Okay, so it is quite long, 10 to 12 centimeter, and extends from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus. Clear? So fallopian tube, it extends from the periphery of the ovary to the uterus. Clear? Here you can see this is the uterine cavity. Okay, and it is quite long. You can see it is 10 to 12 centimeter long, fallopian tube. Clear? Now, the part closer to the ovary, the part which is closer to the ovary, it is funnel shaped and is known as the infundibulum. So you can see here, this is the infundibulum. This is a funnel shaped structure and it is close to the ovary. So the part close to the ovary, which is funnel shaped, this is known as infundibulum. Okay. Now, the edges of the infundibulum possess finger-like projections. So in the image, we have seen the fimbriae. So what are fimbriae? Fimbriae are the finger-like projections which help in collection of the ovum after the ovulation. So these fimbriae are very important. So these are finger-like projections. And what is the function of these fimbriae? They help in the collection of the ovum after the ovulation. So what is ovulation? Ovulation is the release of the egg or the ovum. So after the ovulation, the fimbriae, it collects the ovum. Clear? And where it is present? These are present in the infundibulum, at the edges of the infundibulum. Now, infundibulum, it leads to a wider part of the oviduct. Oviduct, what was oviduct? It was fallopian tube. Okay, this is the fallopian tube. So this wider part is known as the ampulla. Clear? So in the image, we have also seen this ampulla. Now the last part of the fallopian tube is known as the isthmus, and it has a narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. So we have seen that the fallopian tube, it arises from the ovaries and then it joins with the uterus. Clear? So this is the ovary, and from the ovary arises the fallopian tube, which is also known as the oviduct. Then this fallopian tube, this is then connected to the uterus. And there are three different parts of the fallopian tube. Okay, infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus. So isthmus is the region which has very narrow lumen and it is joined to the uterus. Now what is uterus? Uterus is a single and it is also called as the womb. Clear? Now the shape of the uterus is like an inverted pear. Here it looks like the inverted pear and it is supported by the ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. Now the uterus opens into the vagina through a narrow cervix. So we have seen all the structures, okay, in this image that I have shown you. Okay, the uterus opens into the vagina, which is also known as the birth canal, through a narrow cervix. Okay, so here you can see this is the cervix. Okay, this is cervical canal and this is the vagina. Clear? So uterus opens into the vagina through this cervix. Clear? Now the cavity of the cervix is known as the cervical canal. So this is the cavity of the cervix. Okay, which along with the vagina forms the birth canal. So cervical canal along with the vagina, this forms the birth canal. Sometimes you call vagina also birth canal. Okay, clear? So birth canal, it consists of what? Vagina and the cervical canal. Now, the wall of the uterus has three layers of tissue. So there are three layers, okay, present in the uterus. What are these three layers? The external layer, which is very thin and it is membranous. This is known as the perimetrium. The middle layer, okay, this is made up of the smooth muscles and it is known as the myometrium. And the inner layer, okay, which is glandular. So inner glandular layer, this is known as the endometrium. Okay, and this endometrium, this lines the uterine cavity. And you must know that during the menstrual cycle, there is a breakdown of the endometrium. Okay, and this leads to the bleeding. So what happens during the bleeding phase of the menstrual cycle? the breakage of the endometrium takes place, and this leads to the bleeding. Okay, so uterus has three walls. Okay, the outermost wall is known as the perimetrium. Then the okay, middle layer is quite thick. It is made up of the smooth muscles, and the innermost glandular layer, this is known as the endometrium. Clear? Now, the endometrium undergoes cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle. Okay, what are these cyclic changes? We will see when we study the menstrual cycle. So, what happens to the endometrium? Sometimes it is quite thin, sometimes it is quite thick. Okay, so usually the endometrium is quite thin during the bleeding phase, and the breakdown of this endometrium, it causes the bleeding. So endometrium undergoes cyclic changes. What are the cyclic changes? Change in the thickness of the endometrium. Okay, there are changes in the thickness of the endometrium. So menstruation also, it is a cyclic event. Okay, so there are a lot of changes going on. There are changes in the thickness of the endometrium. There is a release of the hormones also. Okay, so level of the hormones also changes. Okay, we'll study this detail when we study the menstrual cycle. Okay, so endometrium undergoes cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle, while the myometrium, it exhibits strong contraction during the delivery of the baby. Okay, so a lot of hormones are also released during the delivery of the baby, such as relaxin also. Okay, oxytocin also. So this helps in the contraction of the muscles that leads to the delivery of the baby. Clear? Now, let's talk about the female external genitalia now. So we in the beginning we have studied. Okay, the female reproductive system also consists of this external genitalia. Now, what are these external genitalia? So this include mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, as well as the clitoris. So these are the external genitalia. Okay, so this image we have already seen. Here you can see this is the labium minora, this is the labium majora. Okay, and here is the vaginal orifice. This is the vagina, which along with the cervical canal, it forms the birth canal. Rectum, this is the part of the digestive system. It stores feces for some time. Okay, here you can see this is the cervix. And we have seen that the uterus is leads into the vagina through this cervix. Okay, and this is the anus. Again, this is the part of the digestive system through which the waste material are eliminated out of the body. Here you can see uterus and the urinary bladder. These are the part of the what excretory system. The excretory system consists of the pair of kidneys and okay, and then it consists of the ureter, and ureter discharges contents in the urinary bladder. Here you can see this is the uterus. Okay, what is urethra? Urethra is an opening through which the urine is discharged from the body. Here you can see this is the clitoris, which is also a part of the female external genitalia. Okay, now let's discuss about this external female genitalia. Now, mons pubis, what is mons pubis? So it is a cushion of fatty tissues covered by skin as well as the pubic hair. So pubic hair are present here on the mons pubis. That's why the name mons pubis, because it consists of this pubic hair. Okay, this pubic hair developed during the after the puberty is reached. Clear? So this pubic hair developed due to the release of the sex hormones, okay, and which help in the development of the secondary sexual characteristic. Clear? Now, the labia majora. These are the fleshy folds of the tissues which extend down from the mons pubis and surround the vaginal opening. Okay, so this is known as the labia majora. These are nothing but these are the fleshy folds of the tissues, okay, which extend down from the mons pubis, okay, and surround the vaginal opening. Now, labia minora. So these are paired folds of tissues again, okay, which is present under the labia majora. Okay, first you have mons pubis, then you have labia majora, then you have the labia minora. Now, the opening of the vagina is often covered partially by a membrane, and this membrane is known as hymen. Okay, so hymens. So sometimes, okay, the hymen breaks due to vigorous exercise, and hymen presence or the absence of hymen doesn't, okay, tell you about the virginity of the female. Clear? Now let's talk about the clitoris. The clitoris is a tiny finger-like structure which lies at the upper junction of the two labia minora, okay, above the urethral opening. Clear? So this is known as the clitoris. It is nothing but it is a finger-like structure. And where it is present, it lies at the upper junction of the two labia minora, okay, above the urethral opening. Now, the hyphen is often torn during the first coitus, which is known as intercourse. What is coitus? Coitus is known as the sexual intercourse. Clear? So hymen we have seen it is a membrane which is covering the vagina. So this breaks during the first sexual intercourse. Now, however, it can also be broken by sudden fall or joint. So due to some vigorous exercise also, okay, or due to sudden fall or jolt, or due to the insertion of a vaginal tampon. So a lot of females they use vaginal tampon during the menstrual cycle, and active participation in some sports like the horseback riding and the cycling. This can also result in the breakage of this hymen. Okay. Now, in some women, the hymen persists even after the coitus. So even after the sexual intercourse, the hymen can persist. So in fact, the presence or absence of the hymen is not a reliable indicator of the virginity or the sexual experience. Okay. So usually there is a thinking that if the hymen is absent, then okay, the female must have experienced this coitus, sexual intercourse. But you can see the hymen, it can be broken down due to some other reasons also, okay, such as sudden fault or jolt, due to the insertion of tampon, okay, and due to the activation participation in some vigorous exercises and in sports, okay. So, but in some cases, the hymen can also persist also, even after the sexual intercourse. So that's why presence or absence of the hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity or the sexual experience. Clear? Now, a functional mammary gland is characteristic of all female mammals. Okay, so female mammals, okay, they consist of this mammary gland. This mammary gland is very important because it produces milk, and this gives nourishment to the, okay, the newly born. Clear? So humans, these are mammals, and the female mammal, they consist of the mammary gland. Okay, they are also viviparous. Humans, these are also viviparous. What are viviparous? They give birth to young ones. Okay, now the mammary glands are paired structures, okay, and they are also known as breasts. So they are present in pairs that contain glandular tissue and variable amount of fat. So they are made up of fats as well as the glandular tissue. Clear? Now here you can see this is the diagrammatical sectional view of the mammary gland. Clear? Now the glandular tissue of each breast is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes containing cluster of the cell called as alveoli. Clear? So here you can see this is the mammary alveolus. Okay, this is the mammary lobe. So the mammary gland of the breast, it consists of the what glandular tissue. This glandular tissue is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Here you can see these are the mammary lobes, and these mammary lobes consist of this mammary alveolus. Clear? This is the mammary duct. Here there is one ampulla region also, but it is different from this ampulla of the fallopian tube. This is the lactiferous duct. These are the nipples through which the newly born child suck the milk. Again, this is the areola. Okay, these are the muscles between the ribs, and these are the pectoralis major muscles. Okay, so you have to remember these one. These are the major one. These are the, okay, this is the sectional view of the mammary gland. So you have to remember all these, okay, terms. Now the cells of the alveoli, they secrete milk. So what is the function of the alveoli? They secrete the milk. There are one more alveoli which are present in the lungs. Okay, lungs also consist of the alveoli. But this alveoli is different. So this alveoli consists of, okay, it is rich in blood capillaries and it helps in the exchange of the gases. Okay, now cells of the alveoli, they secrete milk which is stored in the cavities, which are known as the lumens of the alveoli. Now the alveoli open into the mammary tubules, and the tubules of each lobe join to form the mammary duct. Clear? Now several mammary ducts join to form a wider mammary ampulla, which is connected to the lactiferous duct, through which milk is sucked out through the nipples. Okay, clear? This is very simple. We have the alveoli. Alveoli is secreting the milk. Then this milk is stored in the, okay, cavities of the alveoli. So the alveoli open into the mammary tubules. Mammary tubules of each lobe, they join together to form the mammary duct, and mammary duct join together to form the what? Wider mammary ampulla. And this mammary ampulla is connected to the lactiferous duct through which the milk is sucked out. Okay. So what we have studied in this session, we have studied about the female reproductive system. Okay, now you know what are the parts of the female reproductive system. So it consists of the pair of ovaries. Okay, then we have the accessory ducts. Then external genitalia is also present. So ovaries are very important. What are the functions of the ovaries? So ovaries, they, okay, they produce the female gamete, which is known as the egg. Okay, and it also produces the hormones, which are known as the ovarian hormones. What are these hormones? These are estrogen as well as the progesterone. Clear? Then we have also studied about the accessory glands. Okay, such as the mammary gland. So these mammary glands are present in the, okay, mammals. So mammals consist of the mammary gland, and they are also viviparous, means they give birth to the young ones. Then we have also studied, okay, the structure of the mammary gland. So internal structure we have seen the sectional view of the mammary gland. Clear? So this is the end of this session. We'll cover the rest of the topics in the next lecture. I hope you find this lecture very knowledgeable. Okay, we'll meet you in next lecture. Thank you very much for listening.